Hi, I'm Catherine Llewellyn, the host of the podcast. You can find out all about Truth and Transcendence on truthandtranscendence.com. And you can find out all about me on beingspace.world, where you will find my online coaching offering as well as my UK-based workshops. The Freedom of Spirit workshop for liberation and empowerment, the Pellower Radical Shift in Consciousness workshop for spiritual expansion, and transformational coaching for exploring the mind-body-spirit connection on the expansive path. You can also support the podcast by actually making a donation. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Truth and Transcendence. You can find all our episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. So today, I'm delighted to welcome to the show special guest Jen Aks. Now, Jen is going to talk to us today about listening to the body's wisdom, which anyone who knows me will know I'm so into that. I'm totally into that. So I'm very excited to have Jen here. She is a leadership and embodiment coach, author, and speaker, dedicated to empowering individuals to awaken their body's wisdom and tap into their innate intelligence, enabling them to lead authentically and confidently in every aspect of life. So I think we're going to go into some very exciting places today in the conversation. To find Jen, you can go to jenaks.com, which is JENAKS.com. So Jen, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
Excellent. Well, I've seen your beautiful material on your website and on Instagram, and you're constantly out there sharing with the world about the power of connecting and listening to the wisdom of the body. So can you remember back to the point in time in your life when you first really connected with the power of listening to the wisdom of the body?
Yeah, so I think for a long time, first of all, thank you for having me here. I love it. I'm thrilled to be here. So I want to make sure
Thank
feel my gratitude. I I feel like I've always been connected to my body's wisdom. I just didn't know that there was such a thing until 27 years old, when I started learning about the multiple forms of intelligence and diving into kinesthetic and emotional intelligence, because the blend of that, kinesthetic is the body, right? The body is wisdom, and the emotional intelligence is all the emotions and sensations that we feel within ourselves that guide us, authentically in our life when we learn how to listen to it. So up until that point, I knew that I was connected to something special that was grounding me in my truth and in my purpose and in just this very deep understanding of myself and others. But I didn't know that it was a thing. I just kind of took it for granted. And in fact, I didn't even give it the credit that it deserved and kind of just, ignored it. I knew that it was there, but I didn't, like I said, I didn't realize it was something substantial. So I kind of just took it for granted. And I felt, I lived with a lot of doubt because I didn't even realize that that was a form of intelligence, that the body had so much wisdom. So I'm very grateful that when I was 27, I came into all of this understanding. So that's the long answer to when did I know that I was connected. I think subconsciously I knew for many, many years, and then it really came to fruition in my late 20s.
Right. So in that time when you unconsciously knew about it, how did that affect you or show up in your life?
Yeah, it showed up because well, first of all, I was a dancer ever since, I was little. So being able to connect to my body and allow it to help me in difficult times. I always knew that when I was struggling, I could kind of pull away and go into my body and really connect to what it was feeling. Again, it wasn't as sophisticated of a connection as it is now, but I knew that I could rely on it to reground and center. It also really affected me on, I performed a lot as a child through my adolescence and into my 20s. And that wisdom, that understanding and deep connection to my body gave me the confidence to do all of those things. And then on the flip side, my body told me when I was uncomfortable, when I was stressed out, anxious, and for those many years prior to 27, my body would lead the conversation and I would feel very sick. I mean, I had a lot of stuff going on in my body because I carried a lot of anxiety and self-doubt about myself and about my own intelligence for a long, long time, mainly because society really measures intelligence through the lens of logical and mathematical. At least when I was growing up, it was all about SAT scores and that very linear way of learning. And so outside of that, I just didn't even think I had a form of intelligence that really mattered, again, until I found that research much later. So all of that to say, my body really did tell me that something was off, that I was more than than the story that I created about myself based on societal measures of what intelligence really means. Not that I failed in school, by the way, I did fine, but I wasn't like connected and thriving. And as a result, I felt outside of what I was seeing, outside of the norm.
I think that is so sad and also so moving, that aspect of life for people who are really connected to something very particular like that is not the kind of recognized mainstream currency. There is that kind of isolating aspect of it, which is such a shame because you're actually connected to something that is priceless and incredible, and yet you're almost forced not to value it.
100%. It's not even broad. I was thinking today, actually, because I've written a book called Your Body is Speaking, and it's coming out in the fall. And I was thinking today about what our world would look like if we taught our children in school that there was just a lesson plan about intuition and how to listen to your body and that it knows and that it matters. I mean, life would be very different for a lot of people because so much gets stored in the body and there's so much wisdom in the body. And we don't recognize that until later, if you're even on that path of sort of an awakening or wanting to further understand and deepen. It is not a mainstream mindset. So, life, it is sad. And that's part of my mission, to really wake people up to the wisdom of their body. It is my mission.
Amazing. There's a story I heard recently about a child who was at school and she was very, very fidgety and difficult, and the teachers were very concerned about her. You might know this story. And they said to the mother, you need to take her to a psychiatrist. And she took her to the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist said, just sit in my room and wait while I go and talk to your mother outside. And they went outside and there was like a two-way mirror that the child didn't know. So they were watching the child through the mirror. And the child was getting up and moving around and moving around and moving around. And the psychiatrist turned to the mother and said, your child is not mentally ill. Your child is a dancer. Oh my God.
Okay, I need that story like immediately. Can you send that to me, please?
I honestly don't know where it was, where I found it or heard it.
That is so beautiful. That is so, it's interesting. I'm thinking about my own journey at 27 when I had this awakening and I found the work of Howard Gardner, who has written many books and teaches at Harvard University about multiple intelligences. And when I found this work, it was because I met this woman who was a professor and she said to me, you are very smart. You have kinesthetic and emotional intelligence. There are many forms of intelligence and you have all these things, but this is your strength. And I was like, what? So that validation, right? It's just, I'm thinking about that as you share that story with me, like how beautiful to say your child is not mentally ill or has any kind of problem. They're a dancer. I mean, it's just, oh my God, if more people could, really dig in like that.
I know. I mean, I'm tearing up every time I hear that story or speak it to somebody. And I have shared it with many people because there's that awful thing of I'm not fitting in. The journey's going to get darker and darker from here, as opposed to that thing of, oh my God, it could just flip. And it sounds like for you, you came across these people and these learnings that rescued you really from that potential trap. So how did that all come about? Because there you were in your life. How
Yeah.
did that all happen?
Well, it's really interesting, right? As you say, these people rescued me. And what I feel is that I rescued myself. And this is what everybody can do. This is why I do what I do, because I want to empower people to know they can rescue themselves if they make the choice. So what happened to me was ironically, so I had shared that I had this insecurity and self-doubt around my intelligence. And then at this point in my life, in my mid-20s, I was dating a guy who graduated Princeton undergrad and Yale grad, like so ironic and ridiculous, right? So but it was such a great relation. I mean, it was amazing. Anyway, he grew up with John F. Kennedy Jr. And one night he told me that we were going to dinner with JFK Jr. and his wife Caroline at the time. And my whole body froze. My whole body went numb and froze, and I got like sick and like heated up in the head. And needless to say, I said no, that I wasn't going because I just couldn't. I felt like, who am I to sit at that table? Like, what am I possibly going to offer this guy? I mean, such irrational thinking, but understandable based on what I had experienced in my life. So it was that night that I was in my shower, because that's where I go for just sort of like calm and connection. And I was sitting on the floor in a ball on the shower floor. And I remember just feeling so incredibly vulnerable and sad and disappointed that I had said no to this once in a lifetime invitation. And I really felt this beautiful, strong presence come around me and ask, how long are you going to wait? And how long are you going to allow, really, society to define you before you've defined yourself? And it was a very clear question. And I had a very clear response. Like, I started to awaken and be like, right, like, what am I doing? I know that I have so much more than this. Just because I didn't do well on my SAT scores, I mean, it was ridiculous. So it was the next day that I started doing a lot of work, and then I found this woman who introduced me to the multiple forms of intelligence. And it was just this beautiful, divine intervention in a way. And I worked with her for about 5 years. I wanted to learn everything. And so I had her educate me for 5 years about topics and things that I was interested in that I didn't really learn because it didn't really resonate in school. And I learned through the body. Everything like either became a song or some movement or whatever it was. I embodied the curriculum that we created together. And then ironically, I'll just say, not too long after that, I found a nonprofit organization that teaches curriculum through the body. And it had been around for like 40 years already. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? So I went in, and then that became a 20-year career for me, teaching children and empowering teachers. I became their trainer almost immediately because it was everything that I needed as a child. So I just poured my entire heart and soul into it. And that went for 20 years. In fact, I still train a lot of their teachers.
Wow, how fantastic.
I
So it was really that beautiful presence or energy around you in the shower, right? How do you in any way name or identify that? Or is that something that is more of a unnamed but very important experience that happened for you?
It's such a good question, and I really feel that it's what I'm teaching now, the inner wisdom, the innate wisdom. It was me. I do believe that there's something beyond me. I do believe that there's a presence around me. I've always felt that, always, my whole life. I never knew really how I felt about it or what it was until a little bit later, and certainly now. Like, I had a big spiritual awakening in the last 4 years, and I've come to understand what that presence is for me. So I think it's a combination of just our innate knowing combined with a universal energy that is, that's beyond the body. And I do believe in that deeply. So I don't know exactly what it is. I don't really name it spirit, but it's spirit. It's our spirit, and it's spirit, it's energy around and inside. And ultimately, it really is the wisdom that we harness ourselves. We know there's so much wisdom inside of us, and we know. So I think it's a combination of things.
Thank you so much. I don't know why I asked you that question. I just felt called to ask you that question. It felt
I love
important.
that question.
Yeah, it just felt important in that moment,
Yeah, yeah.
because sometimes we do then um, have an identification for something, and sometimes we don't. And whichever one it is just absolutely right, isn't it?
Yeah.
For us, whichever one it is. So you've had a very profound experience of living with the knowledge of the wisdom of the body without knowing what it was called, combined with living with the encouragement not to value that. And then the transformative experience of you actually standing up and going out and finding a way to make sense of it all for yourself and really embrace it, and then find your path helping other people.
For reflecting the journey. That's very beautiful.
Well, it's a beautiful journey, very powerful, beautiful journey. And also, I will say, I just love your presence around it. You were saying earlier on that you felt like you had nothing before you had the epiphany, awakening, etc. You didn't feel you had the authority or um, the I don't know what the authority to actually. And the authority that you have in your presence now is just so beautiful.
Thank you.
It's strong, but it's not. Uh, it's not hierarchical. It's strong and inclusive, which is just a beautiful thing. And for the people listening, they can't see you as you're standing there, but I can. And for people watching, they can actually see this. But there's this presence about you, and I think is that not something that comes from listening to the wisdom of the body? Would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, I would. And I just love your questions so much. They're really so beautiful and personal. And yes, I really, through my life, I have never been a judgmental person. And I think it's because I had a lot of struggle. I struggled with myself for a long time. And I have a lot of empathy for me. I had, right? And I still do, but like in a very different way. It's more of an empowering empathy at this point. But like, I really care for the person that struggled inside of me. And it made me realize that everybody's got a story too. There's no one escapes this without any kind of confrontation, contemplation, struggle. In fact, I think it's our life's work. I think it's the journey that we actually are meant to do, which is to come home to ourselves after, life like happens. And so I feel humanity and souls so deeply. And I feel the work that I've done in the nonprofit world with the children and the teachers, and then the work that I did during COVID with, creating, which we could talk about, but I worked with such a diverse group of women in particular, and hearing their stories and their struggle and like the resiliency and the survival and the lessons learned and all of that, it just deepens my understanding of humanity as a whole. And so I thrive off of not having any judgment at all, like really listening because I want to learn. And there's no way that I'm going to learn if I have a block of judgment. And I think that lifelong student mentality that I have is a direct result of the way that I learn, because that logical, mathematical, by the book, black and white letters on a page, that just in my learning, my education is through people. That's how I learn, that's how I thrive, and that's how I succeed in the work that I do. It's just who I love it. And I can't be anything else. So I think, yes, I think it's a culmination of like my journey and my work and just what I feel in my body.
Yeah. Yeah. Fantastic. I love it. So when people are coming to you, in fact, before I ask that question, would you like to share a little bit more for the listeners in particular about the different ways that you are helping people in this regard?
Yeah, yeah. So as a result of my life experience, right, the struggle first, then the transformation and like that healing through that 20-year career, a little bit less than 20 years. And my research in kinesthetic and emotional intelligence and my exposure to somatics, really just understanding the power of the body even more, I've created my own signature practice called the power of gesture. And so I teach, this is a body set practice. So there's a lot of talk about mindset, right? Mindset this and it's so important, mindset, getting into the right mindset. But we're not talking about body set and really body setting so that we can listen to that wisdom inside of ourselves to be guided authentically in every aspect of our life. And so knowing all that I know and what I've experienced, I know the power of a body set practice. And so what happened was during the pandemic, there were so many people, including myself, isolated and afraid and all of these things. And I know that my strength is to really help people stay connected to the power of their emotional intelligence inside of themselves. So I started working with people. And as a dancer, I didn't want people to get up and start doing things with their full body because that can be intimidating, especially when we're dealing with emotions. So I had them stay in front of the screen and use their hands to embody their emotions. And so it started to help people unlock and understand and reclaim and stay connected to this wisdom. And it was so successful that I needed to understand why is this, because my body was leading this. I had no idea what I was really doing. I did and I didn't. And so I did some further research and found a lot of connection between the brain and the hands and the relationship between the two, and how there is specific tissue in the brain to help the hands express and process and do all the things. So then it went deeper and deeper. So anyhow, so I've created this practice called the power of gesture, and it sits at the core of everything that I do. So how I serve people is teaching people this body set practice as a tool for themselves to learn how to listen to their body, because I didn't know how to listen to my body. And so many of us don't. And, we've talked about this in this conversation. So this is a way to learn how to listen, and then not only listen, but learn how to trust so that we can listen, hear it, and trust the guidance that it is giving us to go forward. So that was like me on the shower floor. I was connected enough at that point to my body. I heard the wisdom. I trusted it to move forward. I found the people, which led me to the 20-year career, which now led me to this. So once we get on that path, we can really, we stop looking for that external validation and we really start living our truth. And how I really help people a lot of times that are in transition. For myself, 4 years ago, well, almost 4 years ago, I left my 20-year marriage, and it was the hardest thing I ever had to do, but I did it because I trusted my body's wisdom. I knew what it was telling me, what it had been telling me for some time. And then I unpacked, I understood, I used this power of gesture in my own process. I came to trust it and I allowed it to lead me, and and then I did what I needed to do. So anyhow, it's really empowering people to be able to make big decisions in their life for themselves, whether it's just reclaiming themselves inside of a relationship, leaving a relationship, a job, starting a family, whatever that is. All of that guidance and all of the answers are inside of ourselves. So if we can learn how to do that, to really pay attention and trust it, life is good. Feels right.
Beautiful. I love how you trusted what you were being guided to do and were doing it, and without having to understand it necessarily. But you then said, I think I will go and try and find out a bit about this.
Yeah.
And then that obviously fed back and strengthened what you were doing. So you weren't actually excluding getting information from outside or from
Right.
other
Oh,
coaches or
right.
modalities or whatever. You were following the body and then saying, oh, I think I'm just going to refer over here now and get a bit more information about this thing that I'm discovering.
Exactly.
Which is a beautiful way around to do it. There's no either or about it.
Exactly. When you feel, that's where the sensations come in. Like when you feel this, like, oh, this feels good. My heart is racing. This research is really resonating with me. You start to know and feel, and then just trust that, oh, that's clearly a sign that I want more. I want more information. When things are right and when things are wrong. And it's just about tuning into that, trusting it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Have you, along the years and in your research, have you discovered anything about the root of us not trusting our bodies?
The root of it? Well,
Mm.
I don't know necessarily if I have anything specific I'm so sorry, that lawnmower. Do you hear that out there? I hope.
I do, but I thought it might be outside my house.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
But the we'll probably strip it out, so we just ignore it.
Yeah, we're just gonna ignore it.
Yeah.
The root, I think, is there's so much social conditioning and parental conditioning, not because I believe a lot of parents are trying to do this. I think it's just conditioning that, when you're a child, you'll know when you're older. You're just a kid. Wait until you don't know, quiet. It's always like it's quieting down the voice, quieting down the knowledge. Yet when in my research and my understanding and in writing this book, I talk about my kids a lot because they are my teachers, right? I know that now. They have tremendous wisdom and guidance within themselves, teaching me always without even uttering a word. But I don't think that's the norm. I don't think that's how we start off, especially as parents. It's like we're always trying to be 5 steps ahead and always trying to guide from our own experience, when in fact, these souls are filled with wisdom. So I think that down by society and our parents, just kind of like, you'll know when you're older, you'll know. So we're not taught from a young age to really tune in and listen to our body. So I think that's part of the root, that we're just not taught or empowered to really voice or pay attention to what our sensations and emotions are telling us.
And do you
There's a lot of, I'm sorry, I was just thinking about, like, when you're a kid, you're like, I hear, oh, it's not cold in here. Why are you cold? Why are you putting on the jacket? Well, I'm cold. It's not cold, or, it's not so sad. Stop crying, stop feeling, that it's really, puts on us a bit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I think that does happen for sure. And do you find that you have parents who work with you who then subsequently, because they're then listening to the wisdom of their body more fully, who then modify the way they are working with their children?
100%. That is a big source of feedback that I get, that it really opens them up to listen, not only to themselves, but to their children, and to really empower their voices. Yes, 100%.
Wonderful. Well, on behalf of the children who should be encouraged, good for you. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really amazing. In fact, I do a lot of work with teenagers, and I don't talk about this that much. I should probably talk about it more. But it's really beautiful because it's in the dance community, teenagers. And I use the power of gesture. It's a very beautiful experience in a workshop environment. And with the dance community, what's quite something is we take the gestures that they've all created, and then we land with a piece of choreography at the end of like a 3 to 5 hour workshop. It's stunning. That aside, working with these teens and helping them stay connected and empower their sensations and emotions is incredible. Like the feedback from these teens to me is astounding. I didn't know that that mattered. I didn't know that was telling me that. Oh my God, I'm not alone. Oh wow, it's the awakening, the peeling back. So much happens for these teens. It's very, very powerful. And it's interesting because for teens, I'm trying to help them hold on to the wisdom of their body. For the adults, I'm teaching them how to remember the wisdom of their body. You know, it's a very different approach because of the years of life experience that we've had.
Amazing. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm going to come on to a slightly different question now. So before we started recording, we were both agreeing that there's so much going on in the energies at the moment, and a lot of chaos going on in the world, and solar flares and Mercury in retrograde and whatever is going on. And against all that backdrop, there are always people out there who are trying to help other people find their way, who are trying to offer helpful leadership and encouragement and mentoring and parenting. And so some of these people obviously are listening to us at the moment. And some of these people might be thinking, this makes perfect sense. I'm actually going to go to Jen's website after this. Fantastic. Those people are cool. They're fine. But there'll be some people listening who are thinking, this is intriguing, but how do I begin to engage with this? I can feel there's something here, but I feel like maybe I'm not someone who can access it. How can I begin to engage with some of what Jen's been talking about? What might you say to those people?
So I feel terrible because this is so loud. I would say, first of all, if you are feeling that there's something here and you don't know how to start, but you're feeling, then it's an absolute yes. That is your body saying yes to this kind of work, right? I offer a free 30-minute class, virtual, on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. and Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern time. And it's 30 minutes, and it's a beautiful way to experience the power of gesture. It is very safe. We don't go crazy deep or anything like that. It's a very safe, playful way to experience the work and then see if it's something that you want to continue with. I know that I've created something very unique. And I know that when people hear the power of gesture, they might latch on to, oh, it's a body set practice. That's interesting. I think about mindset, body set. Okay, that makes sense. But it's not yoga, Pilates, walking, jogging, dancing. You can't say the thing and people are like, oh, I know what that is. So I needed to create something complementary so that people can come and experience it and see if it's what they want. The other thing that you can do is you can go onto my website because I talk about it. And you're inspiring me actually to put another video on there that really talks about the power of gesture in a very quick, simple way so people can kind of sense my energy towards it. I think that's important, and also kind of like feel in to what this is. The other thing that you can do is you can DM me on Instagram, right? Anybody can, or send me an email. I have so many complimentary videos that I can just send, and someone can do it on their own. Someone can try it on their own time if they don't want to come into a space with me for 30 minutes, and they can do that. The last thing is, and this is a while away, but it's in the fall, but my book is going to come out in the fall. And in this book called Your Body is Speaking, every chapter has the power of gesture at the end. That is a practice with a video connected to me that will take the reader through a 16-minute experience. So, but that's not until September. So, there are lots of ways, but I would say if someone's really interested in experiencing this modality, to reach out to me and we can have a call, or you can do the 30-minute thing, or I can send you something. We'll find whatever is most comfortable.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. That sounds incredibly accessible and lovely for people. And I will just say it's impressive the way that you have, because someone who's a dancer or has been really strongly a dancer in their history, sometimes those people find it very difficult to create something that's accessible for people who are not dancers and have got no interest in being dancers. But you've done that. You've created something, but you've done it without discounting or in any way disrespecting the energy of the dance. And that's really beautiful. I love how you've done that.
Oh, thank you.
I've come across a lot of people who find it very intimidating to consider anything called dance.
Yeah.
I just can't do it.
I understand. I get that. I really get that. And I love people like that and that's a lot of my community, because they get that sense of dance with their hands. I mean, we create this thing that feels like choreography in a way. And it's an entry to dance in a way, because once we are embodying, which the practice is the hands and gesture. But when I do work with someone over the course of time, eventually, sometimes people will get up and want to fully embody the gesture in their entire body, which is not a requirement. And it's not even the goal at all. We stay with the hands. But it is a beautiful introduction to feeling what you can feel when you dance. Yeah.
Without going into any of the performance anxiety, will I look stupid on the dance floor? All the stuff that a lot of us have been sort of traumatized by in our earlier life.
Yes.
Which
I want to help people. I want to give people an opportunity to experience what it feels like without having to do it.
Yeah. Amazing. And I'm glad you've got the complimentary videos as well, because I was going to say, what about the people who are not in a time zone that makes it possible for them to tune in?
Oh, yes. I have many videos I'm happy to share.
Wonderful. Fantastic. Well, this has been so amazing, Jen. We've talked about, I had no idea exactly where the conversation was going to go. I knew it would be organic, which it has been. Has there been for you a favorite part of our conversation today?
It's great that you asked that question. I have to say, I've loved this conversation so much because I really feel like the questions you've asked are very unique, and really just intuitively or naturally move into the next part of the conversation. So this has been one of my favorite conversations, just because I really feel like it built, organically. So it felt like there was just a beautiful arc. So I'd have to think back on my favorite part, because I've been so taken with just the energy of the arc that you created.
Thank you so much. Well, I will admit to you wholeheartedly that I've been practicing listening to the wisdom of the body for a long time myself. And it has made a massive difference to my capacity to follow intuitive sense in interactions and in my life in general. So I can absolutely underline the value of what you're doing personally, because of the importance of it in my own life. And you're absolutely right about it. The body gives you the wisdom that helps you move forwards. And also the body really lets you know when you're in the wrong place. You can't avoid it. So it's both. And to me, both are really, really valuable. It allows movement. So I thank you so much for what you said. I really, really appreciate it. And the final thing before I ask you this, I'm just going to remind everybody how to find you, which is jenaks.com, JENAKS.com. So I like to ask my guests, if you'd like to do this. Sometimes for the listeners, it's really lovely to have some sort of reflection question that they can take away to contemplate across the coming week that relates to the conversation that we've been having. And I just wondered if you'd like to offer the listeners a reflection question to take away?
Yeah. So what's coming to me is an invitation to sit quietly, placing both hands on your heart center or one on your belly, one on your heart, and closing your eyes, taking a couple of breaths, and then asking quietly, what is it that I am supposed to know today? And see what comes through, really giving that space to see what comes through. And it could be something super clear, like a really clear message, like someone speaking to you, or maybe it's a sensation in your body. And then leaning into that and asking that, oh, what are you trying to tell me? Almost like getting curious. So yeah, that's what came to me.
How beautiful. I'm going to do that. That's gorgeous. Thank you so much. And will you come back on when your book's out?
Yes.
It's all about the book.
Please, I would love to.
Awesome. I'd just love for you to do that. Thank you so much, Jen. It's been such a delight having you on today.
Thank you so much. I've loved being here.
And thank you to the listeners. That's all for Truth and Transcendence today. You can find our other episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. Please give us a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, share with your friends, and comment on what we were discussing today. And do go and check out jenaks.com and check in with Jen, because what she's offering is just life enhancing, very beautiful. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. It really helps if you give a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, a review, and share with your friends. If you're looking for transformational coaching or an intensive transformational weekend workshop experience, I can help with that. You can actually help the show by making a donation. Until next time, take care.